talk for a minute about why this issue of government corruption is so fundamentally important. If the public comes to see and believe that the law is applied differently to powerful elected leaders, it sends a terrible message as to the legitimacy of the government itself, which is supposed to govern in accordance with the rule of law. Rampant, unmitigated government corruption inevitably leads to anarchy of the worst kind. It's to the law of the jungle. People don't want to accept that, some people, because of, privilege and position, don't have a different set of laws from the average person. So this is and everybody seems to know this. I think there's a deep-seated appreciation for this. That's why there's been so much controversy about what's been going on in the Department of Justice and all the ancillary things that I've mentioned before. The new narrative seems to be that the Sessions in the Department of Justice, they have a strategy and that we just have to trust in that strategy. At this point, we don't really have a lot of choice. We don't have much we can do to force them to act. But at the same time, the idea that we should implicitly trust the government, and it really doesn't matter who the leaders are, is a huge ask. We shouldn't grant our trust to entities unless they've earned that trust. And it doesn't really matter what the political leader or the administration are. This is not to denigrate the current administration, but to say that if we have doubts, if we have skepticism, they're warranted because of what has been happening for probably the lifetime of anybody that's watching this. So the question really becomes what can be done, and really how should we think about a situation where the administration, even with the best intentions, could be played or manipulated by an entrenched bureaucracy, that they're outmanned to such an extent that they can't, that a patient strategy is really not going to work. In fact, we might have to face the possibility that the entrenched permanent state, if you want to call it that, really just has to employ a delay tactic and run out the clock or slow things down to such an extent that they can weaken or defeat any serious effort at reform. After all, and this is kind of common knowledge, the bureaucracy really views the president and elected officials as temporary manifestations. They come and they go, but the permanent state remains the same. So this is certainly a reality that we have to contend with. So really, where are we at this point? Well, frustration in this is understandable because of the amount of circumstantial evidence that's come to bear. None of us can prove these things in a court of law, and it may very well be that some of this needs to happen in a more slow fashion because they have to be able to make the case in courts. What must not happen is we should lapse into back into a passive state where we just allow an administration to handle everything, to trust that they're going to handle everything, and then we're just going to go along from there. We really do need to remain vigilant. Even if it were the case that we found the government is reformed and improved in some substantial way in the coming years, we still need to remain vigilant and skeptical of government, no matter who's in office, whether they happen to be of our party or they happen to be people we agree with. This is something that all people in the country should agree on. Government is essentially prone to corruption no matter what. This is always going to be the case. It's a question of degree. It's a question of how much are they being held accountable by us, by the citizens of the country. And we simply cannot allow the situation to exist that has gone on for so many years, where people have basically just ignored these things and gone on and lived their lives. We have a responsibility to be diligent and to put in the effort to make sure that our government officials, our elected officials, and the government itself is operating in an ethical, responsible, prudent fashion. And this takes work. It's not something we can just we can't sit back on our laurels and allow things to go according to the flow. It's going to go the wrong way if we don't, if a significant number of us are not diligent about it. Right now, we have a situation where we have essentially no legal actions. There's been 0 indictments, despite all of these wonderful researchers that have come up with a lot of the indications, and even the Congress itself. I mean, you've got Chairman Nunes, you've got Grassley and others who I think are pretty well convinced that we've had criminal, illegal, unconstitutional actions by certain entities, and this is probably just the tip of the iceberg. So with all the resources at its disposal, shouldn't the FBI, the Department of Justice, have been able to do more in a quicker way? Well, we don't know, but it certainly would seem that something should have happened by now, even if it's not a complete answer to the problems. The idea that nothing should be done so long is leaving people very uneasy about whether we're really winning this war to try and clean up our government. So at this point, we wonder, what's really going on? We want to believe that these delays are strategic and that maybe they're even delayed because the crimes actually go much deeper and much broader than we even realize. But we don't have any basis for believing that. We don't have any evidence that they're willing to take any action whatsoever at the higher levels of government. And, you're not just talking about, Hillary Clinton, but you're talking about higher people and high-profile individuals, and even their lieutenants in the lower levels, people like McCabe or Strzok or whatever. Are these people being held accountable? Apparently not. They're still in office. They're still pulling in their salary and potentially their retirement benefits. So at this point, people are just about this close to saying, enough is enough, and they're demanding that something be done. Just wanted to point out something that is in this Earthwatch, BP Earthwatch. BP Earthwatch put out this video today, and there's a memo from Nunes to Jeff Sessions, and it just talks about what has been going on here with the FBI, the request for information that Nunes has put forward to Sessions, and the apparent illegality and violations of the FISA process. And of course, the FISA process is just one small piece of a much, much bigger potential picture here. But he's right to focus at least on something that can be substantiated and focused and defined. There's some boundaries to it. So he's demanded that we get information back from the Department of Justice by March 8th. We certainly haven't heard anything. I think he was asking Sessions to respond by today, so we'll see. I don't know where this memo is actually located. I searched around a little bit for it as far as the actual original document. It's out there somewhere. Again, I found it on BP Earthwatch. And, you see this stuff and you wonder how much is kabuki theater. I mean, we've got this tweet from Trump criticizing Sessions, and on the one hand, you think it's just some kind of a, head fake to say, we're trying to, set up the good cop, bad cop, and, Trump is the bad cop and Sessions is the good cop, and he's got to get the Department of Justice to cooperate with him. Again, the average person is being asked to believe and to trust that all of these strategies, if there is this strategy that we're presuming, are legitimate and effective. So I don't know where this is going, but it certainly does seem that we're reaching a crisis point where we have to see something substantial, something. It doesn't have to be a major, sort of all-encompassing, thing, but some kind of definitive, actual result needs to come forth to show, or at least to communicate, that progress is being made and that real commitment and real action is going to happen. And so I don't know what that's going to be, but I think we'll probably find out at least the next go-around of this in the next week or so, sometime by the end of next week. So that's it for now, and we'll see where we are next time.